Hey, we're really happy you guys are here today. We're going to be talking a little bit about how to make money in acquisitions, in inventory acquisitions. So we have 3 distinct panel members with us. Jesse Martin, SVP of Sales of Dealer Center. Lisa Mackey, VP Dealer Sales Financial Services at NextGear Capital. And for Max Digital, we have Mike Kavanaugh, Executive VP. So we have the whole area covered between acquisition, technology, and DMS. We're going to go through some questions here. Actually, Lisa, I'll just start with you, really. What are some of the things from a perspective that dealers should be mindful of right now?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the number one things that you can be mindful in terms of floor plan is your acquisition strategy. You really need to give consideration to appropriate sourcing of your vehicles. So there's really 3 W's around sourcing. It's what's going to sell in your market, really, really important. It's not what I like or I want, but it's what your customers want. What's the customer demand? What should you be paying for that inventory? As you all know, being in the inventory correctly is very important. And then the other piece of that is making sure that you have a strategy for retailing the vehicle. And it's all common sense type of stuff, but it makes a difference. Dealers that turn their inventory more quickly incur less floor plan expenses and are more profitable.
Good, thank you. Mike, how can independent dealers better position themselves against other independents and franchise dealers online?
That's a great question, Barry. So it's a little talked about part of the industry, in my opinion, but it's actually vehicle merchandising. So, you spend a lot of time trying to buy the right vehicles, that you think are going to sell quickly. You try to use market analytics and different things to buy the right cars. But when you go to put the car online, if it's not merchandised properly, you're missing out on a ton of SEO, you're missing out on a ton of traffic. So when I say merchandising, that is, not just, getting your photos online and getting the right price online that's going to drive traffic, but it's what makes your vehicle unique. So it's, the features and the options, the packages, all of those things that make that vehicle unique in the market. That's what's going to help you position yourself better against other independent dealers, against franchise dealers. I spend a lot of time talking to some of the biggest dealer groups in the country. And that's the hot topic right now, especially with, digital retailing and different things that are out right now, is when somebody's looking for a car, they're looking for a lot of technology. So if your vehicle description, if your VDP doesn't show that vehicle has, a backup camera or nav or Apple CarPlay, or, that's probably the most relevant one now that people are looking for, is something like Apple CarPlay. If your vehicle description, if your VDP doesn't clearly state that you have that, what do you think the consumer is going to think? It doesn't have it on it, right? And they're going to move on to another vehicle. So if you're really trying to compete, if you're trying to drive, more traffic to your website, that's really what you need to focus on.
Thanks. What about, on that same line, what about the sales folks? What's their role in that? How can we better equip them to speak more intelligently?
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools on the market right now. I wouldn't say there's a lot, but there's some tools on the market right now that can really equip your salespeople to be kind of product experts, right? That's what you all hope they are. But even in the franchise world, you might get a little bit of product training on your specific OEM and the features and benefits and options and all the different stuff that goes along with that vehicle. But we're selling used cars, and if you're doing a good job, you're selling a lot of different used cars every single month. And if you don't have some sort of technology that helps your sales team, yourself, speak intelligently about the vehicle, you're going to be perceived in a way that you probably don't want to be perceived with the consumer, because our statistics show that the average consumer spends about 14 hours online shopping for a vehicle. So they've narrowed down, what kind of vehicle they want. Do they want, a truck, an SUV? Do they want a minivan? What do they want? And then they go down to the make and the model, and then they look for the certain options and packages they have and see, what's the best priced vehicle that fits all of my needs. And if your sales staff can't say much other than, man, black looks good when it's clean, doesn't it? This car rides really good, right? I don't know how you expect to be successful. You're relying more on luck than you are on, the blocking and tackling and the things that you need to do to be successful. So I would say you need to utilize some technology out there to make sure that they're equipped to, really be a product expert.
Thanks. Speaking of the technology, Jesse, how does DMS technology impact profitability at the point of the vehicle's acquisition?
Well, I think that's That's the exciting part, right? The technology is really kind of what makes the magic happen. I mean, you have a lot of data, you have access to capital, and at the end of the day, the dealer management system should be the center of the universe for you as a dealership that help you harness all of that data, right? Whether it's acquiring a vehicle at auction, and that is integrated with your mobile app, so your mobile app technology should be seamlessly integrated to feed that back in to your DMS, which there you can manage the photos and the merchandising aspect of it that Mike's talking about. All of that should happen in your DMS. You should be able to get a vehicle at auction and get it back and get it on your website within an hour. I mean, that's very, very viable anymore with the technology that we have. You shouldn't have these siloed components of having a dedicated mobile app that allows you to acquire inventory, and then you have to come back and manually input that VIN into your DMS at a separate time, or wait for it to get back to your lot before you're able to take pictures and sync all of that stuff, so that then again you achieve that velocity, because again you guys want to turn it over as fast as you can. So the faster you get it online, merchandised correctly, priced accurately, you know what needs to happen in order to make that vehicle marketable. The technology can really facilitate making all of that happen. So I think that's the key. It really accelerates your guys' turnover time with the inventory. It gets it from acquisition to market to a consumer. It can really expedite that process and manage that entire workflow for you easier than ever before with the technology that's available.
Thank you. And speaking of easy, Mike, what is one easy thing an independent dealer could do today to help ensure success in 2019?
Wow, that's a tough one, but there's probably a couple different options. But if there were one thing you could do to really ensure your success, is I think it was mentioned earlier by my esteemed colleague to the left here, but to really focus on what's selling in your market, not just what you like. I grew up in an independent dealership, and I grew up working with my dad all the time, and guess what ended up on the lot all the time? Cars that he liked to buy. And that's kind of, it's a bad habit. You want to have a car that you like to drive. You might have a car that you like your husband or your wife to drive. A car that you want, the guy that's worked with you for 10 years that he wants to drive. And sometimes you can make these decisions based on opinion rather than fact. And so I think it's not only important to look at what's selling in the market, but what you've sold historically. And this is, again, I go back to the data, is you need to look in your DMS, you need to look in some of the tools that you have available at how have you historically done with this specific car when you're appraising that car at the auction. Is not just have you sold a lot of these cars, but if you sold a lot of these cars, but when you bought them, they sat on your lot for 70 days and you made $400, you probably don't want to buy more of those cars. You want to buy cars that you specifically sell and make money. You sell them fast and you make money on. So I think that's an important piece to look at, because you may look at just the market. And just a quick show of hands, how many of you guys are pretty close to some big franchise dealers, high volume franchise dealers? Good chunk of you guys. So if you're looking at the market and you're saying, maybe the market says you need to buy a 2-year-old Toyota Camry, right? If you're just looking at the market and you go out and buy the cars that just the market says you should buy, where do you think a consumer wants to buy a 2-year-old Camry from? From you or probably from a Toyota dealer? Probably a Toyota dealer, right? But maybe you look at your historical sales and you see what you've historically done well with, and I think you need to combine those two data sets to figure out, one, how do I grow my business, but how do I run a really efficient, profitable business? So I would say if you take a look at that and really pay close attention to that, it's going to help set you up for success.
Thank you. Lisa, how can dealers leverage floor plans to make themselves more profitable?
Absolutely. Floor plan is a great opportunity to be more profitable. What it gives you is it creates cash flow for you. So it gives you the opportunity when you are out there sourcing vehicles and you find a great vehicle at the right price, but guess what? You've got a lot of capital already tied up. You have cash tied up. That's what floor plan can help you with. You can get that opportunity to increase the number of units that are on your lot so that you can have an opportunity to sell more cars. Floor plan is a fantastic avenue to increase your overall cash flow for the dealership. And if you are sourcing your vehicles smarter, you're using the data, a lot of dealers feel like they need to be concerned about the cost of floor plan, and certainly there are costs involved in that, but there are also costs involved with not having inventory on your lot. You all know that. And if you're winning and you're successful, what can happen to dealers is they have a great weekend, they have a great month, and they may be waiting on lenders to fund those deals, so they've got their capital tied up. They may have franchise tax payments, they may have other fees, payroll, things they need to meet, and then there's this great opportunity to source the right vehicle or source the right inventory, and they don't have the cash to do that. And that's exactly what floor plan provides them, is the opportunity to get your inventory, get it on the lot when you need it, and sell it and turn it.
Thank you. Jesse, what does the next generation DMS look like to you to enable dealers to do more?
Well, I think a lot of that's going to be through continued convergence and partner integration, so that, you know, all the data really traverses one single path, right? The DMS should be the center of the universe. You shouldn't have to have, you know, logging into multiple platforms to manage your dealership anymore. That really should be a thing of the past. And then the data, it's really about leveraging the data, and the data that's available to us today is really immense. So how do you kind of manage all of that data in a way that's functional and usable for you and running your dealership and making informed choices real time? So I think it's not just having it in a DMS platform, but again, looking at how mobile has evolved so much in the past few years, and is the DMS technology out there enabling you to do that on the go? Because as an owner, if you're at the auction, you're not at your dealership, you may not have access to that data. So making sure that you know, that's scalable from a mobile perspective, and you should be able to do just about anything on your mobile that you can on a PC anymore. I mean, these essentially are miniature PCs. I mean, they cost more than a computer these days. So you should expect to be able to get the same type of functionality on your phone that you would on your PC as it relates to your DMS technology, and the data and the analytics, the reporting, to understand your customer demographics real time, to know what kind of cars you need to market to the right audience of your customer and who's coming to your lot, is really critical in terms of making you informed and enable you to be as fluid as possible, and to make changes with the market as the market changes, whether it's seasonal or whatever's happening in the economy today. I think the data that you can leverage through your DMS and your technology is really what needs to expand in the future.
Okay, thank you. Mike, I know you have a lot of experience, not just in the independent space, but a lot of exposure also in the franchise space. What are some of the largest dealer groups in the country focusing on in 2019 to be more successful?
Another great question. You got some good ones teed up today, Barry. So again, if we're talking about some of the dealer groups in the country that have, 80, 100, 150, 200 stores, I do a lot of work with those kind of groups across the country. And really what they're trying to do is, be really smart about how they acquire their inventory. I think, we hear about margin compression all the time in the industry. You guys see that, the sale fees at the auctions are going up, because of the advent of a lot of this technology. We're kind of pricing against each other a little bit, and it's driving some challenges in the industry right now. So I think what a lot of these dealer groups are trying to do is figure out how they can get more vehicles from consumers. I hear this more and more of wanting to market, and you guys see this with Carvana, you see this with CarMax, right? Is they're trying to buy cars directly from the consumer to reduce their acquisition costs, because nobody likes paying a $300 or a $500, buy fee on a car, right? So, and nobody likes competing against 100 other people. And now that, I can remember a couple years ago when people thought I was crazy because I bought hundreds of cars a month online. How many of you guys buy a bunch of your cars online right now? Show of hands. So a good majority of the room, right? Now it's commonplace. So before, when you were only bidding against a couple people in the lane, now you're bidding against, God knows how many people online. You've got a lot less competition when you're reaching out to those customers. So I think, if you guys have a healthy service department to really look at those people that when you do an estimate on their car, if that repair is a little too much for them to afford, but you take a look at that car and you know that you can do it kind of at your cost and take in a good car in inventory, try to switch them into another car. That's a strategy that we're working on a lot with folks right now. If you work with an outside service facility to do your recon, giving them some kind of bird dog that you say, hey, look, if somebody turns down their repair, refer them my way so I can get a shot at buying that car if you think it's a good car. So I think there's a lot of options that you can do, but it's thinking outside of the box of the traditional channels to try to reduce expenses there, because it's not just about how many cars you sell or how much money you make, it's about how much you keep. And fees and all that kind of stuff can eat away those profits real quick.
Thank you. Jesse, what are some of the best practices you see dealers doing to get the most out of their technology?
Well, I think that really finding the solution that works best for your dealer size is key. As you grow and you scale and you have other needs or you have access to other tools, if you're, acquiring more inventory at auction, making sure that you have access to those auction run lists ahead of time that's integrated into your technology, that's been a huge resource as those auction houses have really opened up more data sharing with some of the DMS providers, and so that you can have access to the inventory ahead of time to do your research and analytics so that you go in with a game plan as to what you want to acquire. I think that's one of the key distinctions between dealers that show up at auction, with a purpose and know what they want to acquire because they have the knowledge and the data available to them. It's preparation, right? I think that's kind of key in just anything that you do. If you're prepared and you are informed, then that's a differentiator for you. And so and it's all out there. All that data, all that auction run list, vehicle information, it's all readily available for you in advance. So I think that's a key piece for you at this point.
Thank you. Lisa, in your experience being in the flooring industry as long as we all have, I guess, that almost went wrong.
Is that what you were going to say?
That went wrong, yeah.
That's okay. It's been a long time.
What are some of the signs or some of the things that you guys give advice to dealers that to avoid over leveraging themselves and putting themselves in a position where they're just too buried too far deep?
Oh, that's a great question. That's one of the number one objections from dealers that use cash for their inventory instead of floor plan is that they've known someone, Barry, that has gotten in over their head. So what I would tell you is that whoever you're going to choose as your floor plan provider, they need to be a true partner. And what that means is it's not just about getting a low rate, which is great because we know that margin compression is a big issue and that expenses are important. But your floor plan provider needs to be somebody who has access to the industry data, knows what the trends are, and can help you make better decisions, and can have conversations with you about your aged inventory, can give you some good ideas about how to liquidate that inventory, can talk to you about turn time. It's very important that your floor plan partner is a true business partner and isn't just providing you the lowest rate. It is very important that you have someone that can say to you, not just utilize 100% of your line, but maybe we need to back off on that because sales are slow right now. And if you're just looking at somebody who's in it and providing just the lowest rate, you may not necessarily get that expert advice that you need to help yourself from getting in over your head, because it's very easy to do. We all get excited when we're at the auction. It's easy to raise your hand and buy inventory, but sometimes it's not that easy to liquidate it.
Thank you. That's great. We have some extra time now. We want to open this up for questions. Does anybody have any questions before we have some final comments? Yes.
I mean, depending on the tools that you have out there, and walking through the conference hall over there's a lot of good providers out there that have access to market data that's out there that can tell you what's doing well in the market. But I'm a big fan of really looking at that DMS data personally, because not only do you see what's selling fast, but you see how much money you're actually making on the car. And I think as an industry as a whole, we lost sight of this for a little while, but we're all in the business of selling cars and making money. And so we get caught up on how fast can we run through this inventory. I was just talking about this a little bit ago. I used to be the COO of a 28-store dealer group, and we used to have to bid on 10,000 cars a week to get all the inventory that we needed to support our stores. And when you think about all the work that goes into that, to actually, bid on all those cars, properly appraise those cars, see if they're right, hope you win it, transport it, get it back, do an inspection, recon the car, take pictures, get it online, take the phone calls. To do that for, $500 or $800 is crazy, right? But we do it all the time. So when you look at what am I actually selling well, you know where your kind of niche is in your market, and we all have hopefully carved out some kind of niche in the market, but you have to kind of try to decommoditize what you do, because we are in a bit of a commodity business. We all sell, kind of the same, we can all sell the exact same inventory, so we got to figure out what's going to make us unique and what's going to do well for us to run a profitable business.
Thank you. Any other questions?
It would preload? Is that what you're suggesting? That you need a DMS system that you can automatically, it should be loaded in an hour, I think what one of you said. You should have your car loaded in an hour from the time you buy it at the auction.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, once you have that VIN scanned, right? So and again, I think a lot of the solutions in the space today are a little bit siloed. I mean, you have some mobile solutions that are not synced with the DMS. So then that creates that disconnect for you. But there are solutions in the space where the mobile app is synced with the DMS. And so you VIN scan, you have all the VIN data that you need. You can pull the book values, you can look at a vehicle history report, you can look at all of that stuff. You can take pictures at the auction to at least get a couple of like, hey, this is coming soon, right? Here's a vehicle that's coming soon. No, well, yeah, the mobile solution syncs it into your DMS and instantly pushes it to your website or pushes it out to Auto Trader or Car Gurus or wherever it is that you advertise your inventory. That can all happen like almost instantaneously. I mean, it depends on the feeds out to these third-party sites, but and how often they process the data that they receive. But all of that stuff can be on your website immediately. Yeah, all of that stuff can happen. The technology to do that is absolutely available. Yeah.
Great. We have any other questions? You guys have some final comments you want to make, or advice?
So just to kind of parlay off of what Jesse just said here is, and this kind of ties into a question you asked me earlier, is, what are some of the biggest groups in the country constantly focusing on, and it relates to reducing expenses. And this also ties into floor plan, and costs incurred when you sit on a vehicle for a little too long, but it's time to market. Like, that is a core metric that some of the biggest dealer groups in the country track religiously, is time to market. So how fast can I get this car online? Because, in 2019, online is the new frontline. Most of us probably came up in the industry when, we're trying to get this car frontline ready, right? Well, guess what? If the car is frontline ready and it's not online, that car is really not for sale. It's technically for sale now when that thing is fully ready online. So being able to do what Jesse said by, you've appraised that vehicle, you've got it on there, it really doesn't matter what you have to put into that car for recon, because you should be pricing your car somewhat to market. And I did a lot of subprime and a lot of buy here, pay here in my days too, and I know sometimes, you got a good idea what you're going to price the car at, even regardless if you're not trying to price this thing to market. But you know what you have to sell the car for. If you made a bad buy, if you made a mistake, you can't ask another $1,000 for it because you had to put $1,000 in the car. So if you can, put the price on the car, get a couple of those photos online, that's just going to make it more likely that you're going to sell it faster, and that ties into, how fast you can turn that inventory profitably. So,
my advice around floor plan would be, instead of looking at it as an expense, think about the cost of lost opportunity. Floor plan gives you the ability to supplement what might be your cash strategy. Your cash is going to be finite. There are going to be times that cash is strapped. Floor plan is there to give you the ability to go out and acquire the inventory and be able to get it on your lot and keep your business flowing. So give consideration when you're saying, well, floor plan is too expensive, there's fees, etc. Think about what is the cost of lost opportunity, and it really does take a floor plan to take your business to the next level and grow your inventory and offer your customers more choices.
Yeah, and then lastly, I guess from a technology perspective is looking at your marketing, your ROI. I would say when you are trying to push inventory out, know where you're advertising it, know where your spend is, and the DMS, you should have analytics that tell you what your ROI is, right? So if you're advertising and you're spending thousands of dollars on Car Gurus versus AutoTrader or Cars.com, you should have lead attribution. It should all flow into your DMS. You should be able to see that real time and understand your marketing spend and what's working for you. And that's going back to your data analytics within your data. You know, you have to look at your conversion rates. What is profitable for you? Is there some age demographic variances that make sense for you to focus on a certain demographic? And that is your data. I mean, you can buy some market data that's aggregated and make some generic decisions off of that, but it's your business at the end of the day, and you should be able to see what factors are impacting your profitability with the data that you have in your system. And DMS is 100% capable of looking at all of that data for you.
Great, thanks. Any last questions? Anybody? Yeah.
So I'm with Dealer Center, and of course we can do all of that for you. Yes. No. That's what we can't do. Yeah. But the president of my company's in the back, and maybe he can make us do lease here, pay here eventually. No, it's the challenge with lease here, pay here is we hear it here and there, and we know that there's some dealers that do it, but it's a small percentage of you guys, and so it's been hard for us to, put that at the top of our development list and from a product perspective. But we are always kind of looking at it, and it's on the roadmap, but it's just we'll get there.
Mike, I have a good knowledge of your background. So the challenge we have as dealers, if we're doing subprime financing and pricing for subprime, but yet trying to price to be competitive online, how do we have that wife and mistress and be able to satisfy both?
That's a sensitive topic, but I'll speak to that. So I think you can be priced in the game, right? You're probably not going to be a price leader, and we fought this battle because we tried to serve both masters, so to speak, in my previous role as well. We tried to, drive a lot of traffic and be able to sell to a prime customer, and we tried to do a healthy amount of subprime business. We had our own captive leasing company that I worked with the guys at LHPH to set up over there, and we had a very successful business from that too. So, it's a challenge. I have to say that is you have to have I won't say a fraction. I say you have to have some cars that generate traffic to your business, and this is kind of the concepts of the car business in general, right? Is I've got price leader vehicles. New car dealers do this all the time. I've got the ad that I put out that gets people in the door, and they come in on that $199 a month payment, and they leave at a $349 a month payment because they wanted the leather and the moonroof and the backup camera. So I think you have to have a certain segment of your inventory that maybe you have priced a little bit more aggressively, and then you have to be priced somewhat in the game, right? Not $3,000 over what the rest of the market's selling all the time. If all you do is buy here, pay here all day, all the time, you're in a little bit different world, right? But you got to think about how am I driving my traffic then that way, and that's more of a leads business. That's more of maybe referrals and bird dogs, things like that. But if you're generally trying to generate a lot of traffic online, you have to have some cars that are priced in the game because that's the algorithm. That's how people shop.
Thanks. Any more questions? No? Jesse, Lisa, Mike, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Very informative. Thank you guys.
Thank you.